In the last few episodes, we've been conceptually mapping the core wound and its architecture. We explored scarcity, inherited patterns, and transmission. Today, we're continuing our exploration of the core wound, but we're going to slow down and shift out of the conceptual lens so we can listen more deeply. This is an opportunity to create a more complete inner map of your core wound by noticing the architecture all around it. Because the ancestral agreement underneath the wound isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself as a belief. It often just feels like normality. So that's why I didn't jump straight into this depth, because when you're carrying a lot of unresolved trauma, it feels safer first to get a conceptual perspective of the map before really connecting with how it lives in your body and in your life. I introduced a little embodiment invitation here and there along the way as we've been exploring the terrain of the core wound. And today, you're going to have the opportunity, if you want, to go deeper. Some years ago, when I was trying to identify my core wound, I was trying to look directly for it. But what I found is that the wound is usually the least visible part. It's too close to the self. It feels like the truth. It feels like identity. It feels like this is just who I am, but it's not. So today, we're not going straight for the wound. We're going to start by identifying what you can actually see, which is the adaptation. The adaptation isn't who you are, it's how you learned to stay safe. It's the behavior, it's the coping strategy, it's the thing that you do when your system feels unsafe. It's the way you control or collapse or perform or disappear or explain or please or rescue or rebel or numb or fix or become useful. The adaptation is the doorway because it's the part of the wound pattern that moves out into the world. It's the part that other people can see too. And it's usually the part that we mistake for our personality and others' personality. For example, I'm just independent. I'm just responsible. I'm just intense. I'm just easygoing. I'm just private. I'm just a perfectionist. I'm just the helper. I'm just the peacekeeper. And there may be some truth in that, but much of what we call personality is really protection. It's what we learn to become so we could survive and feel safe. So I'm going to guide you to recognize and name your adaptations, not to shame the adaptation, not to judge your reaction, not to make yourself wrong, but perhaps to finally understand what the reaction has been protecting. Underneath the adaptation, there's usually a worldview or multiple ones. Underneath the worldviews, there's a vow or multiple vows. And underneath the vow, there's a body memory, an energetic and emotional packet. And underneath all of that architecture, there's an identity wound. That's the ancestral agreement that says something like, I'm not enough. I'm unwanted. I'm unlovable. I'm powerless. I'm too much. I don't matter, or I don't exist. That sentence is not who you are. It's the distortion that formed around pain to contain it. And it was inherited. Today, we're going to begin mapping that distortion with greater honesty, tenderness, and self-responsibility. So, this episode isn't about fixing yourself. It's about observing the architecture of your core wound with compassion and curiosity, and then mapping your core wound through a recent trigger that happened in your life. We're going to be listening more deeply for the agreement underneath the architecture that's been the theme song playing in the background of your entire life. It's the organizing principle of your reality. Welcome to Inner Integration. I'm Meredith Miller, and this is Mapping the Core Wound Beneath Your Trauma Adaptations. In the last episode, we established triggers as a bifurcation point, a moment where we either repeat the same patterns and the past propagates itself forward, or we become conscious of the pattern and transmute it into a new transmission of medicine instead of the wound. Today, we're going to use a recent trigger as the doorway to the inner architecture of the wound. So we're not trying to manufacture a trigger. We're not trying to overwhelm your system. We're simply choosing a recent moment that still carries enough charge to help you see the pattern clearly. Bringing that moment to mind is going to activate that packet of energy and emotion in your body so you can bring more light of your consciousness into the depths where it's hiding. And for that reason, I want to mention I know a lot of people listen to podcasts while driving. This episode, however, is not one that I recommend you listen to while driving. So if you're driving, please set this aside for your quiet time and self-reflection when you have a safe and private space to really explore it. I also highly recommend that you journal this with a pen and paper so you can connect with your body and subconscious. And then you can transfer it to a digital file later if you want to. And I want to make a calling to self-responsibility. If this brings up acute despair or more activation than you can safely hold, pause the episode and reach out to a trusted person, a loved one, or even a qualified professional. And if you don't want to connect with your body and the feeling that you've probably been trying to avoid your whole life, the one that's been governing your entire life, then don't do this work. Avoidance can feel like safety. And if you don't want to go there, you can stay where you are and not move forward into this episode. This deeper inner work is not meant to be forced, and you don't have to do it alone. We're not trying to overwhelm the system, but we are allowing enough activation to notice the pattern. So, a completely abstract self-inquiry usually stays in the mind, and the mind is going to rely on our defense mechanisms like rationalization, explaining, intellectualization, and that's going to keep you disconnected from really feeling what's surfacing. That's why we're exploring a recent trigger that brings the pattern alive enough that you can see where it lives in the body, how it interprets reality, and what it does to feel safe. So, a gentle reminder here is that we're not trying to force answers. We're also not trying to have it all figured out. We're simply listening more deeply. The core wound work that we're doing isn't about blaming yourself. It's not about blaming your lineage, and it's not about romanticizing the pain either. It's about recognizing the old agreement, the vows, the adaptations with enough love and clarity that the old architecture no longer has to govern the field, your identity, and your entire life experience. Your core wound isn't only your root pain, it's also the agreement that you inherited. And its architecture was built around the pain in order to survive, to feel safe, to belong in your family, to be loyal to your lineage, and to propagate that pattern forward as a way of staying connected to your roots. Here's the mission, if you choose to accept it. Think of one moment recently when your reaction felt bigger than the situation. It's not necessarily something traumatic. It could actually be something quite small, yet something charged enough that you noticed the activation. Something happened and you got upset. It bothered you, right? So bring that to mind. And when you're ready, and keep in mind, you can keep pausing this as often as you need to keep processing step by step. So, number one, what happened? Now, for now, this is just the facts. That means this happened, then that happened. Someone said or did this, then I said or did that. Just the facts. What happened? Number two, what did you instantly want to do to feel safe? Here's some examples, and yours may or may not be on the list. fight or attack the other person, withdraw or disappear, control something, prove something, perform, collapse or shut down, over explain, become useful and needed, numb yourself, fix something or someone else, rescue someone, rebel against something, overwork, intellectualize, become invisible, become untouchable, become impressive. That behavior is the adaptation. It's the protective response that comes online when the wound is touched. Now, don't judge it and don't embellish it either. Just notice it honestly. Number two, was there a secondary reaction? So think of it like a 1-2 punch. So maybe the moment it happened, you froze. And then later, maybe an hour later, hours later, the next day, you wanted to fight. Either fight yourself in your self-talk and your inner dialogue, or fight another person. Or maybe in the moment you fought, and then later you collapsed and you couldn't get out of bed for hours or days. So there's usually a primary reaction and a secondary reaction. These are both adaptations. See if you can notice what yours is. 4, what sensations was the adaptive behavior trying to keep me from feeling? Now, it's okay if you don't remember off the top of your head. Bringing the trigger to mind again is going to activate that same packet of energy and emotion in your body. So close your eyes, breathe, and settle into your body. And notice, as you're thinking of that trigger experience, any sensations, any particular parts of your body where there's tension or contraction, bracing, aching, heat, cold, acceleration, collapse, rage, or tears. Let yourself really name the sensations. There's probably more than one. Just keep bringing your awareness and your breath into your body to track those. 5, what feeling lives underneath the sensations? Now, that's not the anger on top. It's not the intellectual explanation. What is more vulnerable underneath all of that? It could be shame, helplessness, rejection, regret, abandonment, sorrow, emptiness, terror, agony, loneliness, or something else. Let yourself really name the feeling. That feeling is sitting right on top of the sensations, or right below the sensations. Now, you might notice that this is the part where part of you wants to run away from this by intellectualizing it, or by going back to the story of what happened and blaming the other person or blaming yourself, or rationalizing what happened and what you did. So when you catch your mind doing that, bring yourself back to the body, back to the sensations, back to the feeling, and just be present with it. Almost as if you're being present with a child that's suffering. If you have kids, maybe you know exactly what that's like when your kid is upset, right? Just being present with them. You're not trying to fix it. You're just being present. And remember, you don't have to stay there, but this feeling is key information for moving forward with the process. So don't skip ahead. Take your time here. Number 6, if this pattern could speak, what would it say? This maybe starts to uncover the story that you made up about what happened and what it means about life, about you, about other people, it's what you decided was true, whether it's actually true or not. This is going to uncover some worldviews. This is how the wound interprets reality. You're probably going to hear blame or self-pity, and it might give cringe when you hear it. That's okay, because maybe that means that you're ready to outgrow it. The more honest you are, the more helpful it's going to be with your process. A little bit of honesty is going to get you a little breakthrough. More honesty is going to get you a bigger breakthrough. And again, the purpose isn't to judge yourself, but to simply notice it with honesty. If you feel stuck on this part, I'm going to give you some prompts to really help you connect with the inner storytelling voice that wants to be heard. And once you hear it, you're probably going to notice that it's always been there playing in the background. Maybe you just didn't really pay attention before. So here's some ideas. Maybe it sounds like, see, I'm never or I'm always. For example, I'm always too much. I'm never enough. I'm never chosen. I'm always left out. Here's another one. This proves I'm. This proves I'm worthless. This proves I'm not good enough. This proves I'm unlovable. This proves I'm bad. Another one. No one ever. No one ever cares about me. No one ever sees me. No one ever understands me. No one ever protects me. Another one. I can never. I can never get it right. I can never do enough. I can never make them happy. I can never trust support. Here's another one. People always. People always leave. People always hurt me. People always betray me. People always overlook me. Here's another one. It's not safe to. It's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to trust people. It's not safe to fall in love. It's not safe to ask for support. Now, yours doesn't have to fit into one of these prompts, but these prompts are just to help you kind of get the gears going and to help you expand the story that you told yourself about what happened, what you decided was true. Spend some time here. Really write these out. Don't just settle for one because there's probably a whole bunch there. This is where you're really going to start seeing the connection between your adaptations, your reactions, and your worldviews. Number 7, what did you promise yourself so you would never feel that again? This is going to help you uncover the vows beneath the adaptation in the story. These are the decisions made to avoid feeling the wound again. For example, I will never need anyone. I'll never be trapped again. I will never be weak. I will never let anyone control me. I will never become my mother or my father. I will never be vulnerable enough to be abandoned. I will always be the strong one. I will stay alone forever so I don't let someone else hurt me. All right? Just notice, what are the vows that come up? What did you promise yourself? Number 8, if all of the above, right, everything that you've just written down, everything that you've identified, and please write it down, it's going to be worth it. Really look at all that. If all of that had an identity sentence, what would it say about how you feel about yourself? So, for example, I am, I'm not, I don't, I'm not good enough. I'm unwanted. I'm unlovable. I'm too much. I'm powerless. I'm bad. I don't matter. I don't exist. That sentence may be the core wound in ancestral agreement or very close to it. That's what's inherited through the lineage. It's the root identity distortion. It's the pattern that's looping generationally. Now, if you're not getting more clarity yet, look at what you wrote for the prior questions. Contemplate it, reflect on it, and listen for it without forcing it. Maybe it doesn't come immediately. Maybe later while you're cleaning, you're doing the dishes, you're brushing your teeth, you suddenly have an insight. Or maybe the next time you get triggered, a new light of self-awareness breaks through the veil and you can witness the process instead of being all tangled up in it. So, can you see how this process is moving across the map? There's the triggering event, then there's the adaptation, the primary and the secondary. Then there's the body sensation and feeling. Then there's the worldview. Then there's the vow. Then there's the wound or the identity agreement. So, also keep in mind, there's another layer beneath this where we could really begin tracing the pattern back to the younger self by asking, when was the first time I felt this? And that's a powerful doorway to do inner child integration. It's a key part of the deeper work that I do with people. But I don't want to open that box too quickly here because that's very tender territory. That level of work deserves more space, more containment, and more support. This episode is about mapping the architecture, not forcing the full excavation. So let the map be enough for today, or however long it takes to reveal this for yourself. In another episode, we're going to explore how your core wound connects to the ancestral field. The work that you're doing here is laying the groundwork for that next expansion. So take your time with the self-reflection process as you start mapping more of the architecture of your core wound. You can keep coming back to this anytime you get triggered, and I highly recommend that you do. Each event is going to have its own nuances, its own details, but over time, you're going to start to see the underlying patterns revealing themselves. There's a certain geometry to your particular architecture. So remember, the ancestral agreement is the inherited identity wound at the root. That's the least visible part. The wound is too close to the self to identify immediately. The adaptation is easier to see because it moves out into the world. It's what you do when that wound gets touched. That's why we often confuse adaptation with identity. We tell ourselves something is wrong with us, then we try to heal the behavior instead of listening for the wound beneath it. Much of what we think of as that's just how I am might actually just be how we learn to stay safe. I'm just independent might be I learned not to need anyone because I can't count on anyone. The hyper independence might have protected you from disappointment. I'm just easygoing might be I learned not to have needs because no one cares about my needs. The accommodations and low expectations might have protected you from loneliness and devastation. I'm just intense might be I learned to stay activated so I would be strong. The intensity might have protected you from helplessness. I'm just private might be I learned that visibility and being seen was dangerous. The hiding might have protected you from being punished, condemned, or attacked. I'm just a perfectionist might be I learned that mistakes threaten belonging and acceptance. So the perfectionism might have protected you from shame and rejection. I'm just the helper might be I learned that usefulness was the safest way to earn love. The overdoing might have protected you from abandonment. I'm just a peacemaker might be I learned that keeping the peace made me feel safe when I was scared of things falling apart. So the peacemaking might have protected you from the collapse of the chaos. Part of healing is about sorting out which parts are just old protection adaptations, still trying to keep you safe and still trying to keep the wound from being touched. Remember last episode, we talked about how the wound is also trying to survive. The more layers of energetic distortion and emotional residue that you clear, the more you start to see your medicine and essence emerging. This is the process of becoming you. So, why does all this matter? This personal work is also generational and collective. And as the structures that we've relied on internally and externally continue to shift, the pressure is revealing what our old coping mechanisms can no longer reach. The old ways are getting louder before they loosen. The overfunctioning, the control, the isolation, the emotional bracing, the restless grasping for the phone or tablet, the self-soothing that brings temporary relief but never gets to the root, the bypassing that names the pattern but doesn't transform the body's agreement with it. And I think that many of you can feel that unsettling current under the surface now. You might even be consciously noticing this in your own life. The strategies that once helped you hold everything together so you could keep functioning are now creating more exhaustion. The control that once upon a time made you feel safe might now be making your world feel smaller. The independence that once protected you might now feel isolating. The strength that once carried you through everything might now feel like a role that you're tired of performing. And this is often why people are feeling so confused now. Maybe you're thinking, why am I struggling now? I've done so much work. I understand my patterns. I know better than this, but I keep reacting like this, right? Why is that? Because understanding the pattern isn't the same as transforming the architecture underneath it and integrating. Insights aren't the same as integration. That's why so many people are feeling the strain right now. The old adaptations are not wrong. They helped you survive. They were intelligent at the time, but they might not be able to carry you into the life, the relationships, the purpose, the peace, the abundance, and the inner authority that you're being called to embody now. When the external pressure increases, the places inside us that are still organized around protection become louder. We might reach for control and call it clarity or intention. We might reach for avoidance and call it peace. We might reach for self-soothing and call it healing. We might reach for bypassing and call it mindset optimization. We might keep ourselves busy, useful, impressive, or untouchable because the stillness would make us feel what the adaptation has been protecting us from feeling. That's why the inner root work matters. Not because something is wrong with you, not because you need to fix yourself, but because the trigger is showing you where the old identity pattern is still organizing your life from a place the mind alone cannot reach. That place within you is seeking presence and integration. And that's why you can't get there through the mind alone. The deeper listening happens through the body, through sensation, emotion, breath, presence, and the quiet truth underneath the story. The story is loud. The adaptation is loud. What we're listening for is the signal beneath all the noise. Many of us learned to leave the body because at some point, being fully present there didn't feel safe. So we learned to look outside ourselves for security, certainty, validation, or control. You're probably noticing that more now than ever. The root work brings the listening back home. Not all at once, not by force, but gently, honestly, and with enough compassion that the old pattern no longer has to run your life from the shadows. So the question, who am I when I'm no longer organized around protection? You might not know yet, and that's okay. The question itself invites your subconscious to start organizing itself around the revelation, and that opens a doorway to new possibility, a new way of living and being. The invitation here is to discern what is essence and what is armor, what is medicine and what is survival, what's truly you and what was formed around the wound like scar tissue. And as those layers become clearer, you might begin to feel something underneath the old pattern, more space, more truth, more expansion, more choice, more compassion, more coherence. That's where the medicine begins to emerge. In another episode, we're going to take this map into the ancestral field. And later, we might also explore how this same map connects with the inner child integration and early imprinting. But for today, stay with what you've already begun to see. The core wound isn't only personal, the identity wound is inherited. It might have moved through your family line in different forms, different personalities, distinct adaptive behaviors, and different generational cultures, while the same underlying pattern continued to repeat and loop. So listen more deeply in your daily experiences when you get triggered. You're learning how to feel the architecture from within. You're not supposed to have it all figured out today or even next week. You're being invited to witness and participate in the unfolding of your emergence. Notice the adaptation. Listen for the worldviews. Name the vows. Feel where it lives in the body. And gently ask what identity wound has been organizing the whole pattern. What matters is the choice you make at the threshold of trigger to transmission. You can collapse back into the old familiar architecture of the past, and that'll happen sometimes. You might find yourself seeking security in the old ways that just can no longer carry you forward. Or you can stay present through the discomfort of change long enough for something new to emerge. This is where your personal story, your lineage, and this pivotal time in human history meet. What ends with you? And what medicine can begin because of that? You're not the adaptation. You're the one who can become conscious of the old pattern so something new can emerge. You're not the wound. You are the medicine. If you'd like to join me for a coffee and chat this Saturday, May 16th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and you got to look up where that is for you. We're going to do that in English, coffee and chat. There's a registration link in the show notes. Now, this isn't a class. It's not coaching. I'm not selling anything. We're just literally having a coffee and a chat together. There is going to be a topic. It's going to be whatever comes to me that morning, and we're going to stay within the topic. It will be something relevant. Now, I don't imagine more than 100 people are going to be there, but there is a limit of 100 people in the Zoom room. So please register in advance at that link and add it to your calendar with the link. So when it's time, you can just click on the link and join us. It's not going to be recorded. It's not going to be posted anywhere. So if you miss it, you miss it. There might be more in the future. If you can't make it, we'll see how things unfold. And I might explore different days, different times, because obviously I can't accommodate everyone's schedule and time zone. There's no entry fee. Just come if you'd like to. Maybe you'll get to meet some awesome people. Maybe someone shares something that inspires you. Maybe you feel a little more connected with other people doing inner work during this unsettling time in the world. Check out the link in the show notes. If this message speaks to your soul, make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this with someone else on the path, someone who's ready to go deeper, beyond the surface of healing and into true integration, beyond the personal and into the ancestral, collective, and planetary layers too. And if you'd like to leave a message or a note for me, something that resonated, something you want to hear more about, you can leave a comment here below, or you'll find a link in the show notes where you can send me a private message. Remember, keep listening within. No more playing small. It's time to remember who you are because the world needs your wholeness now more than ever. You are not the wound, you are the medicine. Let your trauma become your map to purpose. Thank you for joining me today for this transmission of the Inner Integration Podcast. You're not broken. You're not behind. Your trauma wasn't a detour. It was initiation, an immersion into the very wisdom that your soul came here to embody. To go deeper into this work, visit innerintegration.com. And until next time, big hug to you.